Deep in the uncharted corners of the galaxy, beyond the reach of most known civilizations, a star system once thought abandoned began to stir. For centuries, it had been forgotten, left to fade into the dark silence of space. But something was changing. A signal, weak but unmistakable, was sent into the galaxy's vast communication networks. It was not much, just a few fragmented words, like a whisper in the wind, but it was enough to catch the attention of those who were listening. The signal was intercepted by a handful of deep space listening posts, some old, some new. At first, they thought it was nothing more than background noise, a glitch from a forgotten satellite or an old probe. But then it came again. And again. Each time, the message was clearer. Still, it wasn't enough to fully decode, but one thing was certain. Someone, or something, was out there. The Galactic Council, a collection of powerful leaders and representatives from dozens of advanced civilizations, received word of the signal. They didn't know who had sent it or why, but the message was clear enough to provoke concern. Was it a distress signal, a warning, or a trap set by one of their enemies? The question echoed through the halls of power as the leaders debated what to do. But even as they debated, something was happening that no one could see. Far away, on the edge of the star system in question, a ship hovered silently. It was not large, not impressive, but it was powerful. Its surface was scarred from years of neglect, but its engines hummed with an energy that suggested much more than it appeared. The ship had been dormant for decades, but now it was awake. Inside, a small crew of humans moved quietly through the darkened halls. They had lived their entire lives in the shadows, cut off from the rest of the galaxy for reasons no one fully understood. It was a colony of survivors, the last remnants of a forgotten group of humans who had fled the galaxy's most brutal wars centuries ago. They had built their home in this remote corner of space, hidden from the galaxy's eyes, living in peace and isolation. Now they were ready to reveal themselves. Their leader, Commander Anya, stood in the bridge of the ship, looking out at the stars. Her face was serious, but there was a glint in her eyes. This was the moment they had been preparing for. She turned to her second-in-command, Captain Thorne, and nodded. "Send the signal. It's time," she said. The message was simple but powerful. It would be their first communication with the galaxy in years, and it would change everything. As the message was sent, it traveled across light years of empty space, finally reaching the galaxy's communication channels. No one could have predicted how it would be received. Back at the Galactic Council, confusion turned to alarm as the signal was decoded. The message was clear. "We are here, and we are stronger than you think." The council members stared at the message in disbelief. For centuries, they had thought humanity's last remnants were gone. But here they were, alive and well, and sending a challenge across the galaxy. The fear in the council chambers was palpable. What had they discovered during their years of isolation? What kind of power did this hidden colony possess? The next few hours were filled with frantic communication between military leaders and intelligence officers. The question on everyone's mind was whether this hidden colony was a friend or an enemy. Some argued for a peaceful approach, while others called for immediate action, convinced that this message was the first step in a larger plan to seize control of the galaxy. But no one knew exactly where the colony was located or how strong they had become. For all the council knew, they could be dealing with a handful of survivors or an entire fleet. The uncertainty was maddening. Meanwhile, Commander Anya stood before her crew, her voice steady as she addressed them. "We've waited long enough," she said. "The galaxy has forgotten us. But no longer. We've built something here, something powerful. And we're ready to take what's ours." Captain Thorne stepped forward, a concerned look on his face. "Are you sure about this? They won't go down without a fight." Anya nodded, her expression hardening. "Let them come. We are prepared for them." Back at the Galactic Council, the debate continued. Plans were being drawn up, decisions were being made, but no one was ready for what was coming. As the days passed, more and more ships began to appear, slipping into the star system at the edge of the galaxy. It was clear now that this was not just a small group of survivors. It was a force. Quiet, hidden, but strong. The hidden human colony had made its move. The galaxy was about to learn the hard truth. Humanity was back, and they were not the weak, helpless race everyone had thought them to be. They were ready to take their place in the galaxy once more, and this time, no one would be able to ignore them. The galaxy's response was swift, but it was too late. The first signs of the hidden colony's power were already making their way through the communication channels. As the leaders of the Galactic Council scrambled to figure out the situation, a fleet of ships, older than most but far from weak, began to move. These ships were not like anything the galaxy's military had encountered. They weren't sleek or fast like the modern warships. Instead, they were built for endurance, designed to survive the harshest environments and the longest isolation. And they had been waiting for years, perhaps even centuries, for this moment to come. The first encounter came quickly. A scouting vessel, sent by the Galactic Council to investigate the colony's location, entered the outer reaches of the star system. Its crew was unaware of what they were walking into. The ship was equipped with the best technology available, capable of detecting the smallest traces of life or activity. Yet, as it passed through the region, it picked up nothing. The system appeared to be empty, its stars and planets seemingly abandoned. There was no sign of life, no advanced technology. It was a ghost system, just as the galaxy's records had indicated. But that was all part of the plan. As the scout ship continued its quiet journey into the system's core, it suddenly picked up a strange anomaly. A small, seemingly harmless ship appeared on their radar. At first, it was barely visible, just a blip in the distance. The crew members, calm and confident in their mission, assumed it was nothing more than a piece of debris, or perhaps a small, unarmed craft. But they couldn't have been more wrong. The hidden colony's ship moved silently, its advanced cloaking technology keeping it unseen. It had been designed to blend in with its surroundings, to go unnoticed until it was too late. It was only when the scout ship had drifted deeper into the system that the hidden human vessel revealed itself, its powerful engines coming to life with a hum that could be heard throughout the entire scout ship. In a matter of moments, the scout ship's communications went silent. The crew attempted to send out a distress signal, but it was too late. The ship's systems had been disabled. Without warning, without mercy, the hidden human ship moved closer, sending a single encrypted message to the scout vessel. "You are far from home." Back on the Galactic Council's capital world, leaders and military strategists watched in shock as the scout ship's last transmission was received. The message was unclear, garbled by interference. But one thing was certain: the hidden colony was more powerful than they had anticipated. It wasn't just a group of survivors. It was an entire civilization, prepared and capable of defending itself. Fear spread across the council. They knew they had underestimated the humans. Some had argued that the colony was nothing more than a few dozen settlers. But the evidence was clear now. The humans had hidden themselves away for so long, building their strength, honing their technology, and learning to survive in the harshest conditions imaginable. They were no longer weak or vulnerable. They were ready. The Council quickly mobilized its forces, sending an elite task force to confront the hidden colony. But as the fleet of ships prepared to depart, Commander Anya of the human colony was already steps ahead. She had anticipated the Council's response and had prepared her forces for what was to come. The hidden colony had not just built ships. They had built an army that was hidden in plain sight, waiting for the right moment to strike. The first wave of attack came not in the form of a direct assault, but in a series of calculated strikes. The hidden human ships launched from their secret base, cloaked and silent, attacking the Council's fleet from unexpected angles. The attacks were swift, precise, and devastating. No one saw it coming. The Council's ships, advanced and well-armed, found themselves scrambling to respond to an enemy they could not see. The humans had not just learned how to fight. They had learned how to fight smart. As the battle raged on, the Council's forces struggled to maintain control. The hidden colony ships were smaller, yes, but they were agile. Their technology advanced beyond what the Council could comprehend. They struck quickly, disabling the larger, more cumbersome ships, forcing the Council's fleet to retreat. The humans, though fewer in number, had turned the tide of battle in their favor. Back in the hidden colony's command center, Commander Anya watched the unfolding battle. Her face was calm, focused. She had prepared for this moment, but even she couldn't deny the thrill of seeing her forces succeed. They had been waiting for so long, hidden in the dark reaches of space. But now, the galaxy was finally seeing them for what they were, a force to be reckoned with. "I told you they wouldn't be ready," Captain Thorne said, his voice filled with admiration for their success. Anya's eyes flicked over to him, her expression unreadable. "This is only the beginning. We've only shown them a fraction of what we can do." The battle continued to unfold in the stars above, but the tide had already shifted. The hidden colony had struck first, and it was clear now that the galaxy would never be the same again. The question wasn't whether the humans had power, it was how far they would go to use it. And as the smoke of the first battle cleared, one thing was certain. The galaxy's leaders would not soon forget the lesson they had just learned. The hidden colony had awakened, and they were not going back to sleep. As the days passed after the first encounter, the reality of what the galaxy was facing began to settle in. The hidden human colony, which had been dismissed as a myth, now stood as a formidable force, challenging the established order of the galaxy. The message they had sent was not a simple warning, it was a declaration. The humans were no longer the weak survivors of a forgotten war. They were a powerful, unified people, ready to fight for what they believed was rightfully theirs. The Galactic Council, still reeling from the shock of the hidden colony's strength, scrambled to form a response. It wasn't just the military they had to worry about anymore. The entire galaxy was watching, waiting to see what would happen next. If they did not act swiftly and decisively, their authority would be undermined, and their ability to maintain control over the galaxy could be questioned. But as the Council met to discuss their next move, something unexpected happened. The hidden colony didn't just sit back and wait for the Council to make their next move. They struck again, this time in a way that no one could have anticipated. In the quiet corners of the galaxy, far from the eyes of the Council, a small fleet of human ships had begun to move. These ships weren't just warships, they were something much more. They were highly specialized vessels designed for stealth and speed. They moved quickly, slipping past the defensive grids and into the heart of the galaxy's most powerful systems. Without warning, they began to disable key communication relays, severing the flow of information between the Council's various factions. It was a masterstroke. By cutting off the flow of communication, the humans were creating chaos, turning the galaxy's once perfectly coordinated systems into a disjointed mess. Fleet commanders couldn't coordinate their movements. Civilian governments couldn't relay important messages. The entire galaxy was thrown into a state of confusion. And in the chaos, the humans thrived. The Council was forced to confront the reality that their enemies were not only technologically advanced, they were cunning. The humans had learned to use the weaknesses of the galaxy's system against them. They had learned how to disrupt, how to create disarray. For the first time in a long while, the galaxy's most powerful leaders were forced to react, scrambling to regain control of their communication networks, their military fleets, and their planetary defenses. Meanwhile, on the edge of the galaxy, Commander Anya stood before her crew, her gaze fixed on the holographic map of the galaxy. The humans had already achieved more than they had ever hoped for, but this was only the beginning. She had known that the first battle would be just a taste of what was to come. Now, they had to make their move. "We've already made our mark," Anya said, her voice calm but filled with determination. "But this is only the first step. The galaxy will not bow to us unless we force them to see our power. We will take control of their communication hubs, their fleets, their resources, whatever it takes." Captain Thorne, standing beside her, nodded. "We're ready, Commander. But are you sure we can win this? The Council has forces beyond what we've seen. We'll be up against entire fleets of ships, and they won't hesitate to strike." Anya's eyes hardened as she turned to face him. "They underestimated us once. They won't do it again. We have more than just power. We have the element of surprise. We've been hidden for so long, and now we're ready to show the galaxy that humanity will not be forgotten." With those words, she issued the orders. The fleet moved out, each ship cloaked and undetected as it headed toward the galaxy's heart. Their mission was clear: strike at the heart of the galaxy's communication hubs, disrupt their command structures, and weaken their ability to coordinate an effective response. The operation began in the dead of night, as most of the galaxy's systems were still reeling from the initial attacks. A series of well-placed strikes on communication relays knocked out entire sectors, leaving millions of citizens without any information about what was happening. Fleet commanders found themselves cut off from their superiors, and military leaders in the galaxy's core were left to make decisions in the dark, without knowing where the hidden human forces were located. It wasn't just a military tactic, it was psychological warfare. The humans were not just fighting with ships and weapons, they were fighting with fear, with uncertainty. The longer the galaxy was kept in the dark, the more they would panic. And in the chaos of panic, they would make mistakes. For the first time in their lives, the people of the galaxy were questioning their security, their control, and their place in the galaxy. The humans, once thought to be powerless and lost, were showing them that they were far from helpless. They had the knowledge, the strategy, and the determination to fight for their survival, and they were willing to do whatever it took to win. Back on the human colony's flagship, Anya watched as the results of their strikes unfolded. The chaos they had sown was beginning to take hold. Fleet commanders scrambled to regain control, but it was too late. The humans had already won the first battle, without firing a single shot. Anya turned to her crew, her eyes sharp with purpose. "This is just the beginning. The galaxy will come to us, whether they want to or not. We've shown them our strength, and now we will show them our resolve. They will learn to respect humanity, or they will fall before us." As the colony's fleet continued its operations, the galaxy's leaders had no choice but to face the fact that their power was no longer absolute. The hidden humans had emerged, and their presence was a force that could no longer be ignored. What had begun as a small ripple in the galaxy's order was now a tidal wave of change, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The galaxy's leaders, already shaken by the initial surprise of the hidden colony's strength, now found themselves facing a new threat. The humans were not only technologically advanced, but they were also organized, methodical, and ruthless in their pursuit of power. What had begun as a whisper, a cryptic message, had now turned into a full-blown crisis. The Galactic Council's attempts to restore order were proving futile, and the humans, it seemed, were always one step ahead. For weeks, the galaxy's most powerful military forces had been on high alert. Fleets were dispatched, resources gathered, and intelligence networks were on high speed. Yet every time they thought they were close to locating the hidden human fleet, the humans would disappear into the shadows once more. They had already taken control of several critical communication hubs, plunging entire sectors into disarray. The Council's communication network was in shambles, and their military commanders were starting to panic. The unity they had once prided themselves on was slipping away, replaced by fear and uncertainty. But it wasn't just the humans' military strength that was unnerving. The hidden colony had also broadcast a new message, one that carried a tone of both defiance and promise. It wasn't a demand, nor was it a threat. It was a vision of the future, a vision in which humanity would no longer be a forgotten species, but a force that would reshape the galaxy itself. The humans weren't just looking to survive. They were looking to thrive, to carve out a place for themselves at the table of power. The message had struck a chord with many in the galaxy. Some saw it as a call for unity, a way for all civilizations to join together and build a new future. Others saw it as the beginning of something darker, something that could unseat the balance of power that had held the galaxy in place for millennia. Commander Anya watched the response to their message with cold, calculating eyes. She had known that the broadcast would not be met with open arms. She didn't expect the galaxy to roll over and accept humanity's demands. No, what she wanted was exactly what was happening: fear, uncertainty, and chaos. The humans had made their move, and now it was time to see who would bend and who would break. Her flagship, a massive vessel designed for both war and diplomacy, moved silently through the outer rim. The fleet was ready. They had taken the first steps, made their presence known, but now the real work would begin. The galaxy's leaders had already begun to organize, gathering their military might to respond to the humans. But Anya knew they weren't prepared. They were too spread out, too disjointed. The humans had planned for this. They had planned for everything. "Prepare the message," Anya said, her voice firm as she paced the bridge. She turned to Captain Thorne, who stood at attention. "We're going to give them a choice." Thorne raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. He had been with Anya through every trial, and he knew better than to question her now. He nodded, turning to the communications officer. "Begin transmission." The message was short, but its implications would send ripples throughout the galaxy. It wasn't an ultimatum, not exactly. It was an offer. Humanity had taken control of the star system they had claimed, but now they were offering peace. Anya made it clear that humanity wasn't interested in endless war. Instead, they proposed something far more unsettling: a new order. "We offer you peace," the message began, "but we will not beg for your acceptance. The galaxy has forgotten humanity for too long. We have no interest in taking your worlds or your resources. What we seek is simple: a seat at the table. You may choose to accept our terms and join us in a new era of unity and strength, or you may continue to fight and risk everything you've built. The choice is yours." The response from the Galactic Council was swift. The message, though direct, was met with outrage by many of the galaxy's leaders. The idea of humanity, once so powerless, now demanding a place among the stars, was unacceptable to those who had ruled the galaxy for centuries. Some of them called for immediate retaliation, a swift strike to crush the rebellion before it could grow. Others, more cautious, suggested a diplomatic response, an attempt to negotiate with the humans and offer them something less than what they asked. But Anya knew they wouldn't back down. The galaxy's leaders had made their stance clear. They were not about to simply hand over power to humanity. So the humans prepared for war. But this time, it wasn't going to be a traditional conflict. Anya knew that a full-scale war with the galaxy's most powerful fleets would be costly, and even with their advanced technology, humanity would suffer heavy losses. Instead, she planned to strike at the heart of the galaxy's power, its leadership. They would target the Council itself, the very institution that held the galaxy together. With the communications network still in disarray, Anya's fleet moved in quickly, attacking key galactic capitals and crippling vital systems. In the chaos, they launched a coordinated assault on the Council's headquarters, a massive orbital station that had once been thought invulnerable. Their goal wasn't to destroy it, but to occupy it, to send a message that the galaxy's leaders no longer had control. Anya stood at the helm of her ship, watching as the action unfolded on the viewscreen. Her heart raced, not from fear, but from anticipation. This was the moment. The humans had waited for this, and now the galaxy would see their strength. This was no longer about survival. This was about dominance. The galaxy had forgotten them, but it wouldn't forget anymore. As the flagship's weapons fired and the battle raged around them, Anya's voice was calm, resolute. "We've made our mark. Now it's time to make them see the truth. Humanity has returned, and we are here to stay. The battle for the Council's headquarters continued to unfold in a violent storm of lasers, missiles, and the deafening hum of energy shields clashing with incoming fire. On the surface of the orbital station, once a symbol of power and control, the structures now bore the scars of the conflict. Massive craters from precision strikes marred the once pristine architecture. The humans were relentless, their fleets circling above like vultures, waiting for their moment to strike again. Commander Anya stood at the center of her command bridge, watching as her fleet systematically dismantled the Council's defenses. It wasn't just about military victory, it was about making a statement. Humanity was no longer to be ignored, no longer a relic of a past long forgotten. The humans had taken their place among the stars, and now the galaxy would have to reckon with them. The Galactic Council was scrambling. They had not anticipated such a swift and brutal assault. Despite their vast resources and formidable fleets, the humans were always one step ahead, attacking with precision and efficiency. Their ships, though smaller, were agile and far more technologically advanced than anything the Council had seen before. The humans had learned how to strike when their enemies were weakest, and their plan had worked perfectly. The Council's forces, stretched thin across the galaxy, were too far away to respond effectively. In the heart of the station, a group of Council officials huddled in a secure chamber, surrounded by armed guards and the hum of emergency lights. Their usual air of authority was replaced by panic. The human fleet had cut off all their escape routes. Their communications were down, and their defenses were failing. They had never thought the humans would rise so quickly with such ferocity. The idea of humanity, scattered and broken, challenging the might of the galaxy's most powerful factions, had been unthinkable. But now, as the walls trembled from the impact of the next barrage, they realized how wrong they had been. Chancellor Vorn, the head of the Galactic Council, stood at the window, staring out into the chaos. His face was pale, his expression a mixture of disbelief and anger. For the first time in his career, he didn't know what to do. The threat was real, and it was inescapable. Humanity had not only taken control of a star system, they had infiltrated the heart of the galaxy's power structure. Their message was clear. Humanity would no longer be a silent player in the galactic stage. Are we just going to let them take everything? Vorn's voice trembled as he turned to his advisors. His once certain authority was slipping through his fingers. "We have no choice but to negotiate," one of his top generals said, his voice heavy with defeat. "If we keep resisting, we risk complete annihilation." "They're not backing down, Chancellor." Vorn clenched his fists, his anger mounting. The idea of negotiating with the humans, of giving in to their demands, was unbearable. The Council had ruled the galaxy for millennia. They had kept the peace, maintained order, and controlled the most advanced military technology in existence. Now they were being forced to cower before a people they had long since written off as insignificant. "I won't surrender," Vorn spat, his eyes burning with rage. "We will fight to the last ship if we have to." But deep down, he knew that the humans were already winning. The battle for the station wasn't just about physical force, it was about influence. Humanity had proven that they could disrupt the status quo, that they could unseat the power structures that had stood for centuries. And no matter how many ships the Council sent, they couldn't change the fact that the galaxy was no longer the same. As the hours passed, the humans continued their assault, striking critical points on the station and neutralizing the remaining defenses. The Council's forces tried to regroup, but they were scattered, unable to mount a cohesive response. The hidden colony had planned this moment with surgical precision, knowing exactly when and where to strike. Meanwhile, on the flagship, Anya received reports of their progress. Her face remained calm, though a fire burned in her eyes. This was the moment they had waited for. Humanity's dominance in this region of space was no longer just a dream, it was a reality. The Council's power, so long unchecked, was crumbling. Anya knew that their success here would resonate throughout the galaxy. It would send a clear message to anyone who thought humanity was weak. We are not to be underestimated. "Commander," Captain Thorne called, his voice cutting through the quiet hum of the bridge. "We have control of their primary communication channel. Shall we send the final message?" Anya paused for a moment, her gaze fixed on the holographic map of the station and the ships surrounding it. She could feel the weight of the decision pressing on her shoulders. This was more than just a military victory. It was the dawn of a new era for humanity. It was the moment when the galaxy would have no choice but to acknowledge them as equals, if not more. This was their time to claim their place in the stars. "Send the message," she said, her voice steady and firm. "Let the galaxy know that humanity is here to stay." The transmission was brief, but it carried the weight of their triumph. The message was sent to every corner of the galaxy, to every planet, every fleet, and every individual who might be listening. "Humanity has arrived." Anya's voice echoed through the transmission. "We will no longer be your shadow. We will no longer be forgotten. This galaxy belongs to those who fight for it, and humanity is prepared to fight. The choice is yours. Stand with us or stand against us. The future is ours to shape." As the transmission ended, a sense of finality filled the air. The Council, now on the defensive, had little left to do but try to regroup and formulate a response. But Anya knew it was too late. The galaxy had seen the strength of humanity, the unity of their people, and their willingness to fight for what was rightfully theirs. The tide had shifted. The age of humanity's silence was over. The humans had taken their first step into the galaxy's history, and they were not going to let anyone push them back into the shadows. The tide had turned. The galaxy, once indifferent to the humans' existence, now watched as their forces surged forward, unstoppable. The Council's headquarters, once a fortress of unchallenged power, now lay in ruins. The communications hub that had connected the galaxy's various factions was in disarray. The once impenetrable defenses were now reduced to smoldering rubble, and the leaders who had arrogantly dismissed humanity's potential now found themselves scrambling to maintain control. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council was on the defensive. The streets of their cities, once bustling with confidence, were eerily quiet. Leaders from every corner of the galaxy tried to rally their fleets, to restore order to the chaos the humans had unleashed. But the damage had been done. Humanity was no longer just a fringe element in the galaxy. They were a force to be reckoned with. In the heart of the Council's operations, Chancellor Vorn sat in his office. The lights dimmed as the holographic displays flickered in and out. His advisors, once so eager to dismiss the human threat, now sat in silence, waiting for the inevitable. The questions were no longer about if the humans would succeed. They were about when they would claim the galaxy's leadership for themselves. "We can't keep this up," one of his generals said, breaking the silence. "Our fleets are spread thin, and their strikes are hitting our critical points. We've lost entire sectors, and there's no way to communicate with the outer rim." Vorn's eyes burned with frustration. He had spent his entire life climbing the ranks of the Council, only to see it all crumble under the weight of a species he had dismissed as nothing more than a relic of an ancient war. How had it come to this? How had humanity gone from a forgotten race to the most powerful military force in the galaxy in such a short time? "Then we'll fight," Vorn spat, though the words lacked their usual conviction. He knew it was a hollow threat. The humans had already proven that they could not only fight, they could outthink, outmaneuver, and outblast the Council at every turn. The time for negotiation had passed. This would not be resolved with a diplomatic solution. Meanwhile, back on the human flagship, Anya stood before her crew, her gaze intense as she watched the galaxy unfold before her. She had known this moment was coming, but even now, as she stared at the galaxy she had fought so hard to change, she felt the weight of what they were about to do. The humans had already proven their dominance in the space they controlled, but now it was time to expand. The core worlds, the heart of the galaxy's power, were next. Anya knew that they couldn't just take them by force. It would be too costly, too time-consuming. No, their next move had to be calculated. They would strike at the foundations of the Council's power, its economic and military infrastructure, and force the galaxy to bend to their will. "We've broken their will to resist," Anya said, her voice cutting through the tension on the bridge. "But we need more than just their fear. We need their loyalty. We need to show them that humanity isn't just a threat. We are the future." Captain Thorne nodded, understanding her meaning. "We've crippled their fleets, Commander, but the civilians still need to see why we're doing this. They need to understand that humanity isn't here to conquer. They're here to lead." Anya's eyes narrowed as she surveyed the galaxy map before her. "Exactly. We're not just fighting for survival anymore. We're fighting for our place among the stars. The Council's rule has kept the galaxy fractured, filled with corruption and infighting. We'll show them that unity doesn't have to come at the cost of freedom. Humanity can bring order, yes, but order on our terms." And with that, the next phase of their campaign began. The humans launched a multi-pronged assault on the Council's economic strongholds, targeting trade routes and vital supply chains. Without the flow of resources, the galaxy's fleets would be crippled, unable to sustain their war effort. The humans didn't just attack, they infiltrated, setting up covert operations within the heart of the Council's commercial centers. They began to redistribute resources, using their newfound power to provide for the civilians who had been neglected by the old regimes. The message was clear. The humans were not simply invaders. They were liberators. The galaxy's citizens, who had grown tired of the Council's oppressive rule, began to take notice. They saw the humans as a beacon of hope, not just for survival, but for a future where they could control their own destinies. On the front lines, humanity's fleet moved quickly, pushing forward with precision and efficiency. Their ships, designed for both speed and stealth, struck at the heart of the Council's military installations, taking out key targets with minimal casualties. They didn't just engage in traditional warfare. They used cyber warfare to cripple enemy systems, spreading confusion and fear among their enemies. The Council's military, once a symbol of invincibility, was slowly but surely being dismantled. Anya knew that the hardest part of the battle was yet to come. The Council's military might was weakening, but they still had powerful allies, rival factions who would fight to the bitter end to maintain their influence. The humans had made their mark, but now they needed to convince the galaxy that they were more than just a military force. They had to show the galaxy that humanity's rise wasn't just inevitable, it was necessary. "We've already won the first battle," Anya said to her officers, "but we haven't won the war yet. The galaxy needs to see what we can offer. They need to see a future where humanity leads, not through fear, but through vision." Her words hung in the air as the crew began to prepare for the next phase of their campaign. Anya had always known this was the moment that would define humanity's place in the galaxy. The battles fought and won had been necessary, but they were only the beginning. To lead, humanity would need to convince the galaxy's citizens that their vision was the right one. The Council, corrupt and divided, had shown the galaxy what they were: weak, self-serving, and unwilling to change. Humanity, on the other hand, would show them what they could become: a united, strong force capable of reshaping the galaxy for the better. The question now was whether the galaxy's factions would fall in line or continue to resist, and if they resisted, humanity was ready to fight. They had already proven their strength, and now they would prove their resolve. As the humans advanced toward the core worlds, Anya stood resolute, knowing that this was just the beginning of a long journey, a journey to reshape the galaxy in humanity's image. And as the lights of the flagship flickered around her, she could feel the weight of the future pressing down on her shoulders. The galaxy was at a crossroads, and humanity would determine the path forward. The galaxy had never seen a moment like this. After months of calculated strategy, crushing victories, and the reordering of entire star systems, humanity stood on the precipice of something vast and undeniable. The once seemingly insurmountable power of the Galactic Council was now shattered, broken into factions scrambling to preserve their own influence, But what truly awaited the galaxy was a new era, a future with humanity at its helm. Anya paced the command bridge of the flagship, her mind racing. They had conquered critical star systems, dismantled the Council's military, and even turned former enemies into allies. Yet she knew this wasn't just about control or power. This was about rewriting the very foundation of galactic rule. They had taken the first step, but now came the hardest part: the transition from military conquest to true leadership. Captain Thorne. Anya's voice cut through the tension in the room. How are the negotiations proceeding with the sector governors? Are they ready to fall in line? Thorne nodded, a weary look on his face. They're divided, Commander. Some see us as liberators, others as conquerors. There are those in the outer sectors still resistant, refusing to join our cause. But they're weakening. Our control of trade routes and resources has crippled their ability to fight back. They don't have the strength to resist us for long. Anya's lips curled into a thin smile, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. She had always known that the hardest part of their revolution would be convincing the galaxy that humanity's vision for the future wasn't just another form of oppression. It was a chance for true unity, a chance to build a galaxy without the corruption and decay of the old ways. This is more than just a military victory, Thorne, she said, her voice filled with resolve. We are offering them something more, something that transcends power and control. We are offering them a future they've never dared to imagine, where their destinies are in their hands. She turned to face the holo display of the galaxy, the map showing the vast expanse of territory under their influence, with pockets of resistance scattered across the far corners of space. It was clear that the Council's former allies, who had once seen humanity as a threat to their own power, were now in a state of panic. Some had already begun negotiations with the humans, while others, those with the most to lose, fought desperately to maintain control. Anya knew they couldn't afford to let those pockets of resistance fester for long. The galaxy had to see that the old ways were gone. Humanity was the future, and there was no room for the fractured, decaying systems that had dominated for so long. Send out the broadcast, she commanded. We'll let the galaxy know what we stand for. Let them see the truth of what we're building. The message was brief, but its power lay in its simplicity. The humans weren't asking for allegiance. They were offering a partnership. They weren't demanding submission. They were inviting cooperation. The new message would be broadcast across the galaxy, transmitted directly to the billions of people living under the shadow of the old regimes. As we rebuild, we offer you a place in this new galaxy. Anya's voice echoed through the transmission. Not as subordinates, but as equals. The galaxy has been divided, plagued by corruption, war, and greed. No more. We seek a galaxy united in purpose, where each species, each world, has a voice, a chance to thrive. Stand with us, or stand against us. The choice is yours, but know this: the future is already here. Humanity will shape the path ahead. The response came swiftly, as Anya had anticipated. Some planets and sectors hailed her as a visionary, a leader who had delivered them from the chaos of the old order. Others, however, rejected the human message outright, calling them imperialists, invaders. The resistance that had once been confined to the fringes of the galaxy now began to coalesce into organized factions, determined to oust the humans from their newly claimed territories. Anya wasn't surprised by this response. She had expected it. The idea of giving up power was never easy, especially for those who had held it for so long. But she had no intention of backing down. The humans had already proven their strength, their resolve, and their ability to overcome any challenge thrown their way. The galaxy had seen them rise from the ashes, and now it would have no choice but to accept that humanity was here to stay. We can't afford to wait, Anya said, turning back to her crew. The longer we let the resistance fester, the more dangerous it becomes. Prepare for the next phase. We'll take the fight to the heart of the opposition. We won't just defeat them. We'll show the galaxy that humanity's way is the only way forward. As the fleet readied itself for the next strike, the tension among the crew was palpable. It wasn't just about winning anymore. It was about securing their place in history. Humanity had already proven their strength, but now it was time to prove their vision. The humans launched a series of precision strikes on the heart of the opposition's strongholds. They didn't just engage in open warfare. They used tactics designed to disrupt, to weaken the enemy without unnecessary destruction. With each victory, their hold on the galaxy grew stronger, and more systems swore allegiance to the human-led alliance. Those who resisted found themselves increasingly isolated, their ability to wage war crippled by the growing unity under humanity's banner. Meanwhile, in the heart of the Council's former strongholds, a new government began to take shape. The Council's leaders, those who had managed to survive the rebellion, were quickly sidelined. The new galaxy was no longer built on old alliances, old grudges, or old systems of power. It was being rebuilt by humanity, and those who embraced this new order were rewarded with a seat at the table. But not everyone was ready to embrace humanity's vision. As the human-led coalition continued to push forward, there were still pockets of resistance. Factions that believed the galaxy's future lay in maintaining the old power structures. But these factions were dwindling. The humans had shown them that their way was the only path to survival. Slowly, the galaxy began to heal, its fractured systems brought together under the leadership of a people who had once been forgotten, but now stood as the unchallenged rulers of the stars. Anya stood once more at the helm of her flagship, staring out into the vastness of space. The galaxy, which had once seemed so distant, so divided, was now within humanity's reach. The future was unfolding before her, and she knew that this was only the beginning. They had fought for this moment, and now they would shape the galaxy into a place where humanity could thrive. "We've done it," Captain Thorne said, his voice filled with awe as he looked at the map of their domain. "The galaxy is ours." Anya smiled, but it was a smile tinged with both pride and the weight of responsibility. "Yes, it's ours. But we're just getting started. This is our galaxy now, and we will shape it, piece by piece, until it reflects the future we've always dreamed of." With that, she turned her gaze back to the stars. The universe was vast, but humanity had found its place in it, and nothing would stop them from claiming what was rightfully theirs.